All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to the Coaching Collective podcast. My name is Michael, obviously. Why the hell did I say that? That's okay. And today we're going to work through the IFBB Nationals wrap up, obviously on the week's delay. We do this just to make sure that we can actually dedicate the time to doing a good job of the podcast, with Mondays obviously being primarily dedicated to the clientele, being, well, personally my biggest check-in day, and obviously for many it would be the biggest day of the week. So it just gives us a little bit of time to really reflect and collect. So basically we had the national show on the weekend. All right, we had the national show on the weekend for IFBB. This was located in Melbourne of Australia, and the Pro Cards were awarded. I'm going to do my best not to move this chair anymore. I am recording this from my home office rather than out of the podcast studio, but the reason I like to do that is because then we can do it via Loom. I can actually look at the photos rather than having to gaze at my phone, and then allows it to be posted to YouTube. So Nationals, it was good. Okay, it was definitely smaller than what I remember, and definitely less spectators. So I did notice for a lot of the competitors who I knew, they had less of a crowd compared to the state shows. But that is hard. And we always need to understand that for someone who's not into bodybuilding, it is a long day. It is something which they don't understand. They won't even really sometimes understand the winners. It's something they don't necessarily take an interest in. So to encourage everyone to come along can be a bit of a hard ask. So especially when they've already seen you once before. And I think that's where this Nationals was let down, because there was less competitors. I'm unsure how many competitors there were, but compared to previous seasons, it was definitely a smaller show. So completely fine in saying that. But obviously all the competitors came down. It was nice to see everyone in Melbourne, obviously being in Melbourne myself. I think I headed to one gym on the Thursday, and at the one gym on the Thursday there was a handful of the competitors there, which was cool. One of the ones that stood out to me, which I will get into later as well, was Dom. I forget his last name. He won the overall he won the open class, the shorts open class classic. And I remember seeing him and thinking, who is this guy, man? Like really, really nice physique. And I will get into that because I was quite a fan of his physique. Like really, really was actually. And I'm trying not to elaborate on that. I want to elaborate on that when I get into it. But for us, so I headed in with the boys who competed a few weeks ago. A little bit disappointing that Jude didn't do the national show, because he actually looks, if anything, better in the health phase on TRT only, 3 weeks after show, which is crazy. And I think that just comes down to how much he actually needs to fill out. So now being on like 4,500 calories, he's looking the goods, and probably just a little bit less stress on the body. But outside of that, so yeah, I think I headed in with Julian as well, and then Marco joined us later, so that was good fun. And obviously James came too. So we did have a good day, got a nice feed afterwards, which was long awaited. We did plan that from weeks out. But yeah, definitely just, I reckon Drew could have got up there if he just had a nice week of a few days of depletion and a few days of carb loading, just to sort of wash off. He's only 3 or 4 kilos above stage weight. Obviously the other boys just probably a little bit further from being in the shape to probably get back up there without having a couple weeks or even a month. But typically the latter is usually the case after show, where Jude would probably be more so the anomaly, but genetics are pretty cool. So I'm going to break down the pro card winners as well. My judgment of the day, yeah, the men's show was busier as usual, and the women's show on the Sunday was smaller as usual as well. Well, not necessarily as usual, but just as per observation in the last couple of seasons. And I would say that this just comes down to that the men do have a little bit of a better draw from the majority, so it does have a bigger draw from people who aren't necessarily going to visit to see friends or anything like that, compared to the women. While I typically do enjoy the women, for someone who's not necessarily into bodybuilding, it would potentially be a little bit of a drag and something hard to really understand, because you will see, for example, like if you're looking at bikini and you had no idea, some of the girls look really good, don't get a place. Some of the girls that to the naked eye don't look as good, do get the place, and that's just a criteria-based assessment. So I guess without further ado, I'll start with, I had Amy competing on the Sunday, as I mentioned. Amy looked fantastic. It was definitely tougher than doing the national show. She obviously did the state show. She placed a little bit worse than she did at the state show, which I didn't necessarily have a problem with, because it did look like a lot of the bottom end of the competitors did drop out, which typically does happen. Those who aren't as competitive, those who are closer to first timers, those, etc., they typically don't repeat compete because they just think, oh, if I go to nationals, I'm not going to place any better, which I don't really agree with. We ran different peaks to some degree, sort of same setup, just different loads. And we were definitely sharper and leaner for the second show. We tried to keep her a little bit flatter, a little bit drier. Why did I choose to do this? Because I did feel like Amy's, how lean she was through the top line and the midsection was probably her saving grace. It was what really allowed her to, I guess, stand next to these other girls. Where the lower body still had some, I wouldn't say it had fat to come off, it definitely didn't. I would say just needed some tissue to come onto it. So I just thought, well, you know what, the glutes still need more muscle, even if they're a little bit flatter. If we can keep that midsection tight and the delts like relatively lean, that should be great, because the last time we did really try to attempt to fill up that lower half and get a nice fuller look, but we did have to do that at the expense of the midsection. So the way she conducted herself through prep was phenomenal. Obviously, I've shared her transformation. We actually have an even better transformation, which we weren't aware of, because I have the identical lighting for both photos. But sheer adherence, the way that she went about it was like a true professional. She looked great. She looked, incrementally. Does that imply that it's not enough? Significantly better than she did in any previous showing, this being her third show, third season, or yeah, I think. So she literally left the last package for dead, and that was on a shorter prep, okay? And in a significantly worse starting point. So I couldn't be more proud of her, and obviously, well, today's Wednesday the 8th at 9:23 a.m. I have a call with her at 11:30 today to discuss what our future looks like, but I already have given her the ballpark of what I think the timeline should look like. I've done all her setup. It'll just be more making sure that we're both happy with it and navigating that together to make sure that it aligns with the both of us. Without further ado, let's get stuck in. So we're going to start with the men's physique category. I'm going to have to skip the first couple. So men's physique masters, I did not arrive on time, unfortunately. So Moorabbin's a bit of a bitch of a drive from Bundoora. So that's that. And likewise with True Novice, I got there for the novice class. Gareth Lim. Okay. When I got there, I saw this guy on stage and I saw him win novice, and I'm like, who's this guy? I've never seen him before. Because my tip was for Wayne to win the pro card. So I started going through my phone, looking at all the state shows, thinking, I can't find this guy. Where the hell did he qualify? And then I jerried that it's a pro qual. You can qualify anywhere in the world, so as long as it's local. Well, not local to you, but qualifies within your region. And he was from Singapore. Now, this physique, 23 years old, is probably the best amateur men's physique I've seen in a very long time. Maybe Fabio would potentially be up there with it, but like this is like at 23 years old, man. Just the development of the biceps, the triceps, the lack of gaps in the physique, the small waist, even the development of the legs. Obviously, we don't judge the development of the legs in the men's physique category, but like this guy is an absolute freak. And I said to the boys, we could be seeing an Olympian in the making. Like, I have no doubt that this guy will be an Olympian provided he sees it through. Really depends. It depends when he wants to do it. Like, I genuinely do think, like, he's without a doubt the best pro that Australia has produced in a long time. Obviously, he's not even from Australia. So if you want to say that he's Australia produced it, then yeah, but not really. But Rahul in second place. Great physique, but like when you put him next to Gareth, it's like, okay. It's like no one compared to him on the day. It wasn't even close. Like, and that's no disrespect to anyone else. That's just complete respect to him. So that was a clear cut case. And Rahul was definitely in second with Jamie in third, I think. So I did miss most of this category. So when I got there, I was just looking at the top three. They were doing the call out for that. And then we go into open class A. Fabian and Tavi were both really, really good physiques too. I always liked Fabian's physique. But again, it was just not... There was no competition for Gareth on this day, man. And like, again, complete respect to the other competitors. And it's nothing to say that they weren't good enough, because they definitely were. But this is not a physique that you're going to see on an amateur stage every day, especially within Australia. So really, really cool. By the way, my dog is in the background. She wants to join in, I think. She's freaking out a bit. That's okay. So yeah, I thought this was fine. So obviously Tavi was the overall winner from New South Wales. I wasn't too sure what to expect with him, to be honest with you, because I had obviously not seen him in the flesh yet. But yeah, so you can see a comment here, one of the toughest lineups. Well done, boys. Well, it was definitely a tough lineup, yeah. It was a clear first place. This lineup was significantly more competitive than Open Class B, though. So Open Class B, we had Wayne in first, and Lucas and Jack, not to say they weren't great physiques, because they definitely were, but Wayne was a league ahead. Hard to say how Wayne would have placed in Open Class A, because obviously he beat Fabian at the Vic show, but not sure that would have been a repeat case. But nonetheless, that was the overall. Then clearly Gareth was a winner for the Pro Card, which is pretty cool. So, a little bit, well, not disappointing, but for the guys in Australia, they would have had no idea where this guy came from. And it was actually the only category where someone came from overseas, as far as I'm aware, for the Pro Qualifier. So, yeah, it took the country by surprise. And, like, you cannot argue with that. You cannot argue with that physique. Like, there is no arguing with it. It just shows you that as far as, like, with bodybuilding, it's whoever rocks up on the day. It's not necessarily a case of being the best athlete, as weird as that might sound. It's who you're up against on the day. You're obviously going to see lineups where guys win pro cards when you think they're not necessarily pro level physiques. And you're going to see lineups where a pro level physique won't win the pro card because they get knocked out by someone else. It is the nature of the beast. But I'd love to hear your argument if you were arguing against this one, because this is not only the best athlete on the day, but definitely a pro level physique, and there is no criticizing it on my end whatsoever. I am very, very happy with that result. So that's cool. And there's another photo of him. Okay. That is the overall there. So some more photos. You can get an idea of how good he actually looked. So that's great. We jump back into Classic. So Classic Juniors, Cam was standout. Not to say Jamie didn't look awesome, just Cam is just another level of human being. A really, really big dude. In shape. Hard to believe he's 23 years old. So that is crazy. And it's funny because that Harry Punton in third place is an incredibly impressive physique too. Just got knocked out by, I guess, two better athletes. With Jamie being absolutely fucking inside out. And Cam just being not only inside out, but a freak. So that is where that stands. So I'm pretty happy with that. There's no doubt here that Cam will eventually be a pro, whenever he really decides for that to be the case. But again, we did have quite a competitive pro top end lineup. So he's obviously going to have to come up against one of those boys at some point as well. So fair play. Masters, I believe I missed this, so that's fine. True Novice A. So I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't take huge interest in the novice classes, just because, well, that was literally my anticipated break from the day. So there as well, that was True Novice A was obviously significantly weaker than True Novice B, but Jackson was a clear winner for True Novice B. Obviously, hard to believe he's a novice. Okay, so that is Classic Physique Novice. Again, bit of a meh, and then True Novice B as well. Jackson with a clear win. I do like Adam Bodie in second place, actually, so he's got quite a nice physique. So all of these judgments, like, to be honest, the whole day the judgments were pretty fair. So if we're looking at Open Class A and B for Classic Physique, clearly Open Class B was more competitive than Open Class A. But I don't want to take any credit away from Dominic Gordiello. I really, really liked his physique. I think, look, there's no doubt that when you compare him to Jackson, there's some gaps that he would need to close, i.e. around the legs. And there was this thing he was doing with his abs and thighs where he'd hold the vacuum and only really be in the abs and thighs for about 3 or 4 seconds. I didn't really like that. But again, I guess he would know his physique and there'll be a reason or the method to the madness. But I really did find this physique impressive. It's just hard to really compare with someone who's probably 20 kilos and 6 inches taller than you, which was Jackson in the overall. But super impressive. To some degree, remind me of Tom Stanley. Definitely a deserving winner of that class, so that's fine. And that's not to say that Open Class B, the Jackson wasn't deserving winner. He was clearly the deserving winner. Second and third, I love Dash's physique. I think that, Jordan Madashi, I think I've made very clear comment on that before. I'm a big fan of him and how he conducts himself, but I definitely thought he was a little bit off this day, because in Queensland, after the Queensland show, I was like, this guy's got everything. He was lean, crisp, sharp, presented well. Um, just didn't get that same spark from him in the national show. And there was some areas which showed that potentially he was a little bit off the mark. I'm not too sure. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know the exact circumstances, but not just because of the physique. It could have been that we were just comparing to two really good athletes that made him look that little bit off. But to some degree, in the way that he conducted himself, you could almost see that he wasn't completely confident that he was at the top. I'm not too sure. This is just my observation from the outside. But yeah, nonetheless, I don't think Jackson was really beatable on this day. Yeah, I just don't. But obviously with Jordan, he's going to be heading away, as far as I'm aware, to try and get pro cards. So obviously he's got some opportunities to recapture this. If I had the time to do it, I'd probably compare him at Queensland versus this show. But that's okay. I think where I mostly noticed it was through the back. Jackson was better at this show than he was at Melbourne. And well, Cam I didn't see in his state show. But I do believe he's calling it a day for the season, because I believe that a couple of the boys had a chat with him after the show. So obviously he can come back bigger and better. And I would say that pro status is inevitable for him at 23 years old. So, and then the overall with Jackson going with a pro card given. Okay, so bodybuilding. Okay, juniors, clear winner in Jamie. That's fine. Masters 40 plus. I actually missed this one, so we keep moving. And I'm probably going to skip that up until the open classes. So the lightweight, again, didn't really give this too much of attention, but clear winner with Diego. Middleweight, Benjamin Roberts. Okay, quite evidently the winner as well. And then now we're going to I'm just going to move it up to heavyweight, super heavyweight, and there's no middleweight. I reckon they've just made a mistake in one of the things here. Where do we go? Yeah, I don't think that's true novice somehow. Andy Miller, winner. Andy Miller's a 42-year-old father. When I went on his profile, I was a little bit taken back. I was like, whoa, like this guy's a pro. Like crazy. He's 42. He just turned pro. That was awesome. So for those unaware, Andy was up against, I'm not discrediting. He was up against Joshy Andrews in the Queensland show. Joshy pulled out due to some medical stuff. And Andy placed second, so he was just behind him in the overall. Andy was, without a doubt, the most complete and impressive physique. The only reason it was interesting is because you don't typically see the smaller guys win bodybuilding pro cards. It's just not very common. But I remember we were watching this one, and James is like, the guy in the middle's one. The guy in the middle's one. And I'm like, no way they're not going to give it to one of the mass monsters. And then without further ado, Andy Miller is your new IFBB Pro. I thought that was cool as fuck, personally. Especially just being, like I said, family man, older dude, persistent. Didn't, as far as I'm aware, didn't even have anyone there supporting him. Like, he's coached by Phil Viz, who's in the US, I think. But this was super impressive, and I'm assuming he's ecstatic. Dimi clearly won this, and David Fideli clearly won this as well. So it was obviously David and Dimi. David was just, like, if they were going for size, David was just more impressive. I do think David is inevitably going to be a pro. I think it's just a matter of getting him into that really, really good condition, which is something that can be really difficult to do with the really big guys. And I think it's just because a lot of our basic laws of coaching go out the window when you're coaching someone who's 127 kilos on stage. It's not something that I'd be really good with, to be completely fair. Like, I think, because you got to think, I've heard stories of, like, from previous coaches where they have, like, super heavies on, like, 5,500 calories at the bottom of their deficit, like, to deplete. And to most people, that just seems ridiculous. So it would be very hard to wrap your head around. So I think it's a matter of time for him, personally. But like I said, I don't think anyone's arguing with Andy as the winner. Obviously, it just looks strange because they've gone with a smaller dude, which they don't typically do. But nonetheless, pretty cool. So we're going to keep moving on. Really happy with these results. And you can see how good he actually looked. And I'm sure he's proud. Look at the glute, man. Look at the glute in the side shot. That's fucking mad. Oh, all right, gnarly. Let's go to the women. Okay, Physique Pro. She was in the lineup of one of two. She got the exemption to win the Pro card. The exemption being, so you need 5 people in a lineup for you in order for you to turn pro. Obviously, being 2, you do need to get clearance from the IFBB, which was done by Tony. And I saw her backstage at the Queensland show, and definitely deserving pro. It's just almost disappointing that only a couple of people were in the category for her. So I'm not sure what expectation she was going into the show with, but she's a pro now, so good on her. And she definitely deserves it. I have no doubt about that. So we keep moving. Okay. IFBB Figure Pro. So Seville Ford with the win there. I'm not like particularly invested in figure, if I'm completely honest. Nothing. It's not a category which I've loved, but looked awesome. But I do think it may have been more of a case of best on the day. That's just my judgment. Please don't get upset by anything that I say here, because yeah, I'm just not sure with the conditioning perspective and stuff, things like that. Definitely deserving winner. Definitely deserved the overall. Obviously, it wasn't really even a small category, but congratulations to Seville. She looked fucking phenomenal. It was just more the gap between her and second was quite significant. So that is fine. Okay, we'll take that. I'm not going to comment anymore. I don't want to say the wrong thing in a category that I don't understand. So then we go into wellness. This was my tip, Emily King. Where are the comparison rounds, mate? There we go. Where are we? Wellness. Let's just go to the overall for wellness. Yeah, so like Emily King was a clear winner. There's no doubt about that in my mind. I said that from the start. Just the most polished, complete physique that I've seen. Again, wellness not one that I've been super invested in solely because it's a little bit less popular, but nonetheless, let's just stick to some things that I know a little bit better and go to bikini. So hopefully all the photos are here because they did stop posting photos. All right, so bikini masters. Leanne, fantastic physique. Yeah, man, super happy with that, man. Like, she looked great. She really went toe-to-toe with the top end. I believe she is a first-timer. Maybe I'm wrong, but she's definitely, obviously, over 35. And I believe she is natural as well. So that was impressive. Okay, the novice classes, again, not super interested. Obviously, Rika placing in first is just something to point out because she was a little bit more muscular, a little bit sharper, which typically is something that they do mark down. But again, you're comparing against what else is there. So obviously she had the most complete package on the day for her respective categories where she placed well. And that takes me to... Oh, it's not going to take me to my next point yet. I'm going to just withhold that thought for a second. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the open classes. So this was open class A. It was a little bit disappointing that Katie was in the same open class as Mel because obviously they were, well, without a doubt, the two best athletes on the day for the whole season. But that's going to take me to my next point too, which I'll get to. Just in regards to Mel, a little bit more muscular. Glutes were dense as fuck, bubbly as fuck. She looked great. And I think that's just where she probably pipped Katie. Katie was just probably a little bit like in less condition, which wouldn't necessarily mean that places her second. I'd like to know the feedback on that. Not arguing that Mel deserved it. She definitely was in first place, but we'd like to know where they were separated there. So definitely potentially glute density. And then, yeah, maybe just that midsection dealt conditioning and was obviously without it being too much. So we got open class B. Alan was clearly first. Yeah, definitely first. So that was fine. I watched this from start to finish without sort of even coming up from air. Kira Longmuir, I was actually unaware of her. So that is in first place open class C. And open class D, Kaiser was the winner of WA. Correct me if I'm wrong. I actually found her physique incredibly impressive for a little bit of a dark horse. Like a little bit less popular, unless maybe she's just someone that I don't follow, potentially. She was definitely... Like, she's definitely in line to turn pro if that's what she wants. So, yeah. And then, obviously, your posing award goes to Katie Stones. And then your overall to Mel, which is everything here. I thought for the entire day, there was nothing that was, no undeserving winners, no real undeserving places. It was very, very consistent, very in line with what we were expecting. The only thing that kind of surprised me was the fact that they went a little bit larger on bikini for most of the season, which I did like, because I have a couple of girls who a little bit larger, a little bit drier, a little bit sharper when they're in shape, and it does open a door for them, which is kind of exciting. And it might not necessarily open a door for them because they might not necessarily be in the top run, because like one in particular may be a little bit too much, but at least I know now they're not going to get completely marked out for being too large, which is kind of exciting, because I can transition them from the natural federations to the untested in IFBB while still remaining natural. So that is pretty fucking cool. But overall, it was a good season. It was a smaller season. I'm very, very interested to see how Season B goes, and I am looking forward to Season C. So we have less competitors for Season B. So at this stage we have C, we have 3. One is a lock, 2, one I've had discussion with tonight. Well, both have the discussion with tonight. So that's not to say we won't pick up more competitors between now and then, but it was a hell of a season. IFBB is always fun, especially because it is super consistent across the globe. I guess thank you for listening. Share your thoughts, share whatever else you like, and we shall be able to move forward. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you all soon.